Welcome to a deep dive into information networks and AI. We'll be going through your highlights from Yuval Noah Harari's Nexus today.
Okay.
It's a fascinating journey through humanity's relationship with information, from ancient storytelling all the way to artificial intelligence.
And what's really striking is how Harari frames this whole thing.
Right.
He kind of starts by questioning humanity's wisdom. Like, if we're so smart,
Yeah,
why do we keep making these self-destructive choices?
it's a good question.
So that really sets the stage for exploring information networks, how
Right.
powerful they are and how we humans haven't always been the best at using that power.
Okay, so let's dive in. Harari starts with what he calls the naive view of information. The idea that it's all about representing reality accurately.
Right.
Get the representation right, and boom, you got the truth.
Yeah.
But he challenges this, doesn't he?
Oh, he definitely does.
Right.
Harari argues that information is just as much about connection as it is about representation. He uses music as an example. Oh, interesting.
Saying that even bad music that might not represent anything specific, can still connect people emotionally and physically.
That's such an interesting point, that the act of connecting through information, even if it's bad information, is creating something real.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the metaverse.
Oh, totally.
A digital world built entirely on information, and yet people are spending huge chunks of their lives there.
Right.
Forming relationships, buying virtual land.
It really highlights this blurring of lines between physical and digital realities,
Yes.
right? The metaverse is a virtual world,
Right.
but the emotions, connections, even
Yeah.
the economic activity happening there are very real.
Yeah. It's mind-blowing to think how much of our lives now exist in these information networks.
It is.
And speaking of connection,
Yes.
that leads us to Harari's ideas about storytelling.
Uh-huh.
He argues that storytelling, this unique human ability, has been key to our success as a species.
He does.
He points to those evolutionary changes in our brains
Okay.
that allowed us to believe in
Yeah.
and be moved by fictional stories.
Right.
He says this enabled large-scale cooperation without needing those personal relationships.
Like, we don't know every soldier fighting for our country,
Right, exactly.
but we feel connected to the national narrative,
Yeah.
to the story of our nation.
Exactly.
It's the story.
Story.
It makes so much sense.
It does.
It's like how brands tell stories to connect with their products, or how we're often drawn to a person's story, not just their achievements.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the narrative that makes them relatable.
Yes.
But Harari takes this even further, right?
Mm.
He talks about intersubjective reality.
He does.
This is where things get a little trippy.
Yeah.
He argues that things like laws, gods, money, they exist because we collectively believe in them.
Right.
Because we tell stories about them.
Absolutely.
They have power within a network of believers. But outside that network, their meaning might just disappear.
That's a really powerful concept.
It is.
Yeah.
But even with all their power,
Yeah.
stories have their limitations, right?
They do.
And that's where documents come in. Harari talks about how they emerged as a way to store and manage information as societies got more complex.
Right.
It wasn't just about campfire tales anymore.
No.
So it was a little bit more complicated.
Right. He highlights the rise of tax records, lists, inventories, all these documents that helped manage these larger populations and resources.
Okay.
But what's interesting is how he sees these documents as complementing storytelling.
So it's both.
It is both.
Okay.
National myths might legitimize tax collection, but it's the meticulous documents that actually make it happen.
I wonder, though, doesn't that shift from stories to documents change how we think?
That's a great point.
Because stories are engaging, emotional,
They are.
but a tax record? Not so much.
Yeah, not really, not so much. And
No.
that difficulty in engaging with raw data leads to another key development. Bureaucracy.
Oh, fun.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy, for all its flaws, was an early attempt to make sense of big data,
Right.
a problem we still grapple with today.
Yes.
Only now it's on a much larger scale.
So bureaucracy is all about organizing information,
That's right.
making it retrievable from this mountain of documents.
Precisely.
Oh, yeah.
But what's fascinating is how Harari points out that in its quest for order, bureaucracy sometimes ends up prioritizing order over truth.
Hmm.
He uses the example of classifying a species as endangered.
Okay.
It's a label we create within our bureaucratic system,
Right.
but it has very real consequences for that species.
Right. So even a seemingly objective system like bureaucracy, which is supposed to be based on facts and figures,
Yeah.
can be influenced by human biases and limitations.
Absolutely, and this brings us to a crucial point. More information doesn't always lead to better outcomes.
Okay.
He uses the printing press as an example. It was revolutionary for spreading knowledge, but it also fueled the rapid spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories,
Wow.
leading to events like the witch hunts.
Wait, so you're saying something can become real just because enough people believe in it, even if it's not true?
That's exactly what he's arguing.
Okay.
Think about how witches became real in the 16th and 17th centuries.
Okay.
There was no objective truth to the accusations.
No.
But because people shared stories, pamphlets, even legal documents about them, they became a terrifying reality for many.
Wow.
So it really highlights the power of belief and how information, even if it's false, can shape our perceptions of reality.
So how do we protect ourselves from falling prey to these kinds of narratives, especially in a world where information spreads so quickly? Like, it's hard to tell what's true and what's not.
Well, that's a great question, and it's something we're all grappling with today.
Right.
Harari points to the emergence of scientific institutions as a potential counterforce. And what's interesting about these institutions is that they're designed to be self-correcting.
How so?
They embrace skepticism
Yeah.
and acknowledge that making mistakes is just part of the process of seeking truth.
So it's about being open to being wrong, to changing your mind when new evidence emerges.
Exactly. And this emphasis on self-correction really contrasts with institutions that prioritize maintaining order above all else.
Hmm.
Challenging the established narrative in those systems can be seen as a threat.
Yeah.
And it's a tension we see play out in democracies as well.
Okay, so how do democracies fit into this idea of information networks?
Well, Harari argues that democracies, unlike dictatorships, are designed to be more like distributed information networks. Think of it like centralized versus decentralized systems. Dictatorships are centralized, all information flows through a single point,
Okay.
and errors are often suppressed or ignored.
So it's like a single source of truth, but what if that source is flawed?
Exactly. In contrast, democracies are designed to be more decentralized,
Okay.
with power and information spread across different institutions.
Like the media, the courts, universities.
Exactly. They all have their own ways of checking and balancing each other.
Right.
And it's this diversity of perspectives and the ability to challenge the status quo that allows democracies to self-correct, at least in theory.
Okay, so it's not just about having more information.
Right.
But about having a diversity of viewpoints
Yeah.
and a system that allows for debate and dissent.
Exactly.
Okay.
But how do we ensure those systems remain strong, especially as technology continues to evolve?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a question we'll definitely delve into deeper.
Okay.
But the key point here is that we've gone from stories to documents to these complex information networks, and now we're entering a phase where the network itself is becoming inorganic.
Inorganic.
Yeah.
With computers playing an increasingly active role.
Inorganic networks.
Yeah.
That sounds a little ominous.
It does, a little bit. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means we're moving beyond computers simply being tools for connecting humans.
Okay.
We're now talking about machines that can make decisions and generate new ideas autonomously.
So you're talking about artificial intelligence, right?
That's right.
But how does that change the game?
Well, think about it. Computers, unlike any previous technology, have the potential to operate without constant human input.
Right.
Take social media algorithms as an example.
Okay.
They're constantly analyzing data, deciding what we see, prioritizing content that drives engagement.
Right.
And that's where things get a little tricky.
So you're saying they're not just connecting us.
Right.
They're actually shaping what we see and how we think.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it raises some important questions.
Like what?
Like, what happens when the goals of these algorithms don't align with human goals?
Yeah.
What if they prioritize engagement even if the content is false or misleading?
It's a little unsettling to think that these algorithms have so much power over what we see and how we understand the world.
It is unsettling,
Yeah.
especially since these algorithms are often opaque.
What do you mean?
Well, we don't always understand how they make decisions
Yeah.
or what their ultimate goals are.
It's like we've created a system that's powerful, but increasingly beyond our control.
It is.
And it's not just social media.
No, it's not.
You're talking about this inorganic network spreading to other areas of our lives.
That's right.
But where else is this happening?
Well, think about facial recognition technology, AI-powered databases.
Okay.
Insurance companies monitoring our driving.
Right.
This pervasive surveillance is making it harder and harder to escape the watchful eyes of the inorganic network.
Right.
And even more concerning is the rise of peer-to-peer surveillance.
Peer-to-peer, you mean like
Yeah.
everyone watching everyone else?
Exactly.
What?
Think about online reviews.
Oh.
They can make or break businesses and reputations. But they're also incredibly vulnerable to manipulation and abuse.
Yeah.
It creates a situation where tyranny can exist even outside of government control.
Okay.
It's not just about Big Brother anymore.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
And speaking of control,
Yes.
this leads us to the idea of social credit systems, right? Where our online behavior, our social media posts, our purchases, it all gets used to create a score that determines our opportunities and freedoms.
Exactly.
It seems very Black Mirror-ish.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Harari explains how this kind of system really blurs the line between the monetary market and the reputation market. Traditional reputation was much harder to quantify.
Yeah.
But now technology allows for a constant stream of data to judge our trustworthiness.
So what's the potential downside of all this?
Well, imagine a world where your social score dictates your access to jobs, loans, even social circles.
Oh, wow.
That score, based on algorithms and data we may not even be aware of,
Right?
could become the ultimate arbiter of our lives.
It's like a digital caste system where your place in society is determined by an invisible score.
That's a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to that tension between truth and order.
Oh.
Harari argues that information networks often prioritize order over truth. And this becomes even more pronounced with AI.
Okay.
Think about those YouTube algorithms that reward creators for making outrageous and untrue content just because it gets clicks and views.
It's like we're incentivized to create content that is shocking and attention-grabbing, even if it's not true.
Exactly.
But doesn't that create a distorted view of reality?
It absolutely can. He calls it a dictatorship of the similar.
Dictatorship of the similar.
Yeah, where extreme content rises to the top, drowning out more nuanced and thoughtful perspectives.
Those are really crazy stuff.
Yeah, the really crazy stuff because it gets the clicks.
It's like we're reducing the complexity of human experience to a single metric. Engagement.
Exactly.
And that can have some pretty negative consequences.
Because
it sounds like we're losing something important in that reduction, something that makes us human.
that's a really profound point, and it's something we'll explore further as we continue this deep dive into the world of information networks and AI.
This is fascinating, but also pretty terrifying.
It is a little bit of both, isn't it?
Yeah, where do we go from here?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting.
It was been talking about this dictatorship of the similar.
Right.
And it makes me think about the idea of the Silicon Curtain you mentioned. Instead of like a more connected world, it seems like we're headed towards more fragmentation, like separate digital realities.
You hit on a key point there.
Yeah.
Harari argues that AI, despite its potential to connect, could actually lead to greater division and divergence. He challenges that classic globalization narrative, the one that says tech is bringing us all closer.
Right.
He suggests that the control of data, the algorithms that govern our lives, could create a new form of digital imperialism.
So it's not just about physical borders anymore.
No, not at all.
It's like we're talking about digital borders.
Right.
Where your access to information and opportunities is determined by the algorithms that basically control your online world.
Exactly.
Wow.
He describes the Silicon Curtain as this digital divide that separates the world based on those algorithms and the control of data. Imagine different digital spheres evolving with distinct values, norms, even political structures.
It's like we're creating separate cultural ecosystems.
Yeah, it is.
With unpredictable consequences.
Very much so.
It's a bit like that sci-fi idea of parallel universes.
Right.
But instead of branching off through like wormholes, we're diverging through algorithms and data flows.
Exactly.
So you're saying we could end up with different versions of reality based on the information we consume online.
That's the idea.
That's wild.
And what's even more fascinating is how Harari suggests that this divergence could play out in unexpected ways.
Okay, like how?
Well, he brings up the relationship between our physical bodies and our digital avatars, or profiles.
Okay, now that's where things get really interesting.
He suggests that a culture that's heavily influenced by Silicon Valley, for instance, might start to see the physical body as less important.
Hmm.
almost like a temporary shell for our online personas.
Okay.
In contrast, a culture rooted in a more traditional worldview might place a much greater emphasis on the physical body and its connection to our sense of self.
So you could have two people living in completely different realities, even if they're physically in the same space,
Precisely.
just because of how they view the relationship between their physical and digital selves.
That's the idea. He even speculates about how this could lead to entirely different understandings of consciousness and personhood.
Like what?
Imagine a culture where AI is given the same rights and status as humans, while another vehemently rejects that notion.
Wow.
It's almost like we're talking about different philosophical frameworks shaped by the digital environments we inhabit.
It's incredible to think about these questions of what it means to be human, what it means to be conscious, being shaped by the digital spaces we occupy.
It is.
But it's not just a theoretical debate, is it? What are the real-world implications of this kind of divergence?
The implications are huge.
Like,
These differing understandings could impact everything from legal systems and social norms to how we interact with technology itself.
okay.
Imagine the challenges of international law if countries have fundamentally different definitions of personhood based on their relationship with AI.
It's a lot to take in.
It is.
It feels like we're at this crucial turning point in history.
I think we are.
The choices we make about AI and information networks will have a ripple effect for generations to come.
Absolutely. And those choices aren't just about technology. They're about the kind of future we want to create.
What kind of worlds do we want to live in? One where technology serves humanity, or one where it dictates our lives?
That's the question, isn't it?
Okay, so let's get practical for a moment. We've talked about the challenges, the potential risks,
Yeah.
but what can we actually do to navigate this complex landscape? How do we ensure that technology serves us and not the other way around?
Well, Harari doesn't offer any easy solutions,
Right.
but he does stress the importance of making conscious choices and proactively shaping our relationship with AI.
Okay.
He advocates for embedding democratic values into the design and development of these systems from the ground up.
So it's not about rejecting technology altogether.
No.
It's about being intentional about how we use it and ensuring it aligns with our values.
Exactly.
Okay.
He talks about the need for benevolence,
Okay.
making sure data is used to help people, not manipulate them.
Right.
He argues for decentralization, preventing the concentration of power in the hands of a few tech giants or governments.
Okay.
And he emphasizes mutualism, balancing increased surveillance of individuals with increased scrutiny of those in power.
It sounds like he's calling for a more human-centered approach to technology.
Hey.
One where we prioritize well-being and individual freedoms.
Exactly.
But those are big systemic changes.
They are.
What can we do as individuals in our daily lives?
Well, one of the most important things we can do is stay informed.
Okay.
We need to understand how these technologies work,
Right.
what the potential benefits and risks are,
Right.
and how they're being used in our lives.
So don't just passively consume the narratives fed to us by tech companies and governments.
Exactly. Be critical thinkers, question assumptions, and seek out diverse perspectives.
So it's about being proactive, doing our own research,
Hmm.
and not just blindly trusting what we see online.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Hmm.
Demand transparency and accountability from those in power.
Oh,
Push for regulations that protect privacy and freedoms.
yeah.
Support organizations working to ensure AI is developed ethically and responsibly.
It seems like having these conversations, raising awareness, being engaged in the process is crucial.
It's absolutely crucial. Talk to your friends, family, community. The more we discuss these issues,
Yeah.
the more likely we are to make a positive impact.
Right. Remember, we're not just passive bystanders in this technological revolution.
No, we're not.
We have agency. We have choices.
We do.
And we can shape the future.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another profound question Harari poses. What is the future of consciousness in a world increasingly dominated by AI?
Now, that's a big one.
It is a big one.
What does he say about that?
He doesn't offer any definitive answers,
Right.
but he challenges us to consider what it means to be human in this new era.
Yeah.
It's a question that will likely be debated for generations to come,
Right.
but it's one that deserves our deepest attention.
So it's not just about the potential for AI to become conscious.
No.
It's about the impact AI is already having on our own consciousness.
Exactly.
The way we think, feel, and interact with the world.
That's right. Think about how much time we spend staring at screens, scrolling through social media,
Yeah.
consuming content curated by algorithms.
Right.
It's shaping our attention spans, our emotional responses, even our values and beliefs.
It's almost like we're outsourcing our consciousness to the algorithms.
It is a little bit like that, isn't it?
But what does that mean for our future as humans?
That's precisely what we'll explore in the final part of this deep dive.
So we ended on a bit of a cliffhanger,
Yeah.
this whole question of AI affecting our consciousness.
Right.
It's a big one. And I have to admit, it makes me a little uneasy.
It is. It's a question that gets to the heart of what it means to be human in a world that's increasingly shaped by technology.
Right.
Harari argues that we're becoming so reliant on these inorganic networks to filter our information, tell us what to think, even what to feel, that we risk losing touch with our own inner compass.
It's like we're handing over the reins of our minds to the algorithms.
It is a bit like that, yeah. But what's the danger in that? Like, we use tools to simplify our lives all the time.
Well, the danger is in becoming so dependent on those tools that we love the ability to function without them.
We risk becoming, passive consumers of information rather than active agents in shaping our lives and the world around us.
I see.
Imagine relying on an algorithm to tell you who to date, what career to choose, even what to believe.
Okay, that is unsettling.
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving.
It's like giving up our free will to a bunch of equations.
Right.
But if this is the path we're on, what can we actually do about it?
Yeah.
Is there a way to reclaim our agency in this world of, always evolving tech?
Well, Harari suggests that we need to cultivate what he calls digital literacy.
Okay.
This means understanding how these systems actually work,
Right.
recognizing their biases, their limitations,
Okay.
and developing the critical thinking skills to evaluate the information that's presented to us.
So it's not about rejecting technology.
Right, not at all.
It's more about using it consciously,
Yeah.
intentionally,
Yeah.
rather than letting it use us.
Exactly. It's like learning to drive a car, You don't just jump behind the wheel without understanding the rules of the road or how the engine works. You need to be in control.
Right, not the other way around.
Right.
And what about all those uniquely human things?
He talks about the importance of nurturing those, too.
Oh.
Our inner lives, our capacity for introspection, empathy, connection with something beyond the digital.
You mean those qualities that kind of set us apart from machines?
Precisely.
Okay.
He argues that these qualities will become even more crucial in a world where machines are increasingly capable of mimicking human intelligence.
So it's what makes us human?
It's what defines our humanity, yes.
Okay.
It's what makes us unique and valuable in this new landscape.
So it's not just about, being digitally savvy.
No.
It's about cultivating those inner qualities that make us human in the first place.
Absolutely. He even suggests things like meditation, mindfulness,
Right.
spending time in nature, anything that helps us reconnect with ourselves and cultivate those qualities.
It's almost like we need to develop a sort of digital hygiene.
That's a great way to put it.
Being mindful of our screen time, limiting our exposure to those manipulative algorithms, making sure we're engaging in activities that nourish our minds and souls.
Exactly. It's all about balance. Recognizing the value of technology
Mm-hmm.
while also being aware of its potential pitfalls.
Yeah, and I imagine it's not just about individual practices.
No, it's not.
We need to create social structures and institutions that support those values.
Absolutely. Think about it.
Right.
We need to educate our children about digital literacy, encourage critical thinking in our schools,
Right.
and create spaces in our communities for meaningful human connection.
Right, beyond the screens.
Yes, exactly.
So it's about taking a holistic approach,
Right.
recognizing that the future of humanity isn't just about technological advancements.
No, it's not.
It's about the choices we make,
Yes.
the values we embrace,
Uh-huh.
the kind of world we actually want to create.
You got it. It's about recognizing that we have agency.
Yeah.
We're not just passengers on this technological roller coaster.
We can shape the ride.
We can shape the ride. We can choose the destination.
I think this deep dive into Harari's Nexus has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It's a challenging and thought-provoking work, and it really raises some pretty fundamental questions about the future of humanity in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI.
And as we've explored in this deep dive, those questions aren't just about technology. They're about who we are, what we value, how we choose to live our lives in this, rapidly changing world.
So what will you do with these insights? How will you navigate this, complex and often confusing landscape of information networks and AI? It's a question each of us needs to answer for ourselves.
The future is not predetermined. It's up to each of us to shape it.
So keep exploring. keep questioning, and keep those brains buzzing. Until next time, fellow deep divers, stay curious.